Vulnerability is often perceived as a weakness in many cultures and environments, especially in competitive professional landscapes or leadership roles. Yet, this misconception couldn't be further from the truth. At its core, vulnerability is not about fragility, but about the immense strength it takes to be open and authentic. It demands courage to reveal your true self, including your fears, doubts, and imperfections, qualities that are often hidden behind masks of confidence and certainty. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we are not exposing ourselves to failure or ridicule. Instead, we are embracing the very human experience that connects us all. Being vulnerable means acknowledging that you do not have all the answers and that uncertainty is a natural part of growth and progress. This admission is powerful because it frees us from the illusion of perfection, which is often the enemy of creativity and innovation. When we stop pretending to be flawless, we open ourselves up to learning and adapting. This mindset shift transforms vulnerability from a perceived liability into an invaluable asset. It's the foundation for authentic relationships, meaningful leadership, and creative breakthroughs. In professional settings, showing vulnerability can radically change dynamics. A leader who admits to not knowing everything, who is open about challenges, and who shares their own struggles invites others to do the same. This creates a culture of trust and psychological safety. Employees and teams feel empowered to take risks, share ideas, and admit mistakes without fear of harsh judgment. Vulnerability, therefore, becomes the bedrock upon which innovation thrives. It transforms workplaces from rigid hierarchies into collaborative ecosystems where every voice matters. Moreover, vulnerability is crucial for personal resilience. It allows us to confront difficult emotions rather than suppressing them, leading to greater emotional intelligence. This emotional honesty fosters deeper self-awareness and better decision-making. When you face your vulnerabilities head-on, you cultivate an inner strength that cannot be shaken by external circumstances. This resilience is what sustains long-term success, not just bursts of achievement followed by burnout. Historically, many of the greatest innovators, creators, and leaders have demonstrated this paradoxical strength through their willingness to be vulnerable. They have shared their vision despite uncertainty, admitted failures publicly, and exposed their humanity to inspire others. This transparency is what made them relatable and powerful. It allowed people to rally behind ideas not because of perfection, but because of shared humanity and the courage to persist despite setbacks. On a personal level, embracing vulnerability nurtures authenticity in every interaction. It's a radical act of self-acceptance and honesty that breaks down barriers. When you are vulnerable, you invite others to see the real you, beyond the polished exterior. This connection fosters empathy and deepens relationships, both personally and professionally. Authentic connections are more enduring and impactful than superficial ones, and vulnerability is the key to unlocking them. Importantly, vulnerability does not mean oversharing or lack of boundaries. It's about selective openness, choosing when, where, and with whom to share your true self in a way that is constructive and empowering. This discernment requires self-awareness and courage, but it ultimately leads to stronger, more meaningful engagements. In essence, vulnerability is a profound form of strength that demands courage, self-awareness, and authenticity. It dismantles the myth of invulnerability and perfection, replacing it with a powerful narrative of connection, growth, and resilience. To harness this power is to open the door to innovation, leadership, and personal transformation. Vulnerability is not the absence of strength, it is the truest expression of it. The ability to embrace vulnerability fundamentally transforms how we connect with others and how we lead. True leadership is not about projecting infallibility or exerting control from a position of strength alone. It's about fostering a space where authenticity and openness thrive. When leaders demonstrate vulnerability, they model a behavior that dismantles traditional power dynamics and inspires genuine trust. This kind of leadership invites collaboration and empowers teams by showing that it is okay to be imperfect, to ask for help, and to admit when one doesn't have all the answers. It signals that making mistakes is part of the journey, and that growth comes from learning and adapting rather than from rigid perfectionism. In environments where vulnerability is embraced by leaders, a culture of psychological safety emerges. This safety is essential for innovation because it encourages people to take risks without the fear of harsh judgment or failure. When individuals feel safe to express their ideas, doubts, and creative impulses, breakthroughs happen more naturally. Teams begin to work with greater transparency and openness, which improves communication and reduces misunderstandings. This cultural shift is not just about feeling good. It's a strategic advantage. It drives productivity, sparks creativity, and nurtures the kind of engagement that sustains long-term success. Moreover, vulnerable leadership humanizes the workplace. When leaders share their struggles, uncertainties, and personal stories, they become relatable and approachable. This breaks down the artificial barriers that often separate leaders from their teams, fostering empathy and a shared sense of purpose. People want to follow leaders who are authentic because authenticity builds trust, a critical currency in any organization. Trust, once established, enhances loyalty and commitment, motivating employees to contribute their best work even during challenging times. Vulnerability, in this sense, becomes a catalyst for deeper connection and stronger collective resilience. On a practical level, embracing vulnerability in leadership requires a shift in mindset. It means moving away from the outdated notion that leaders must be stoic, unshakable figures who always have the answers. Instead, it calls for a recognition that leadership is a dynamic process, full of learning curves and moments of uncertainty. Great leaders are those who continually evolve by reflecting on their experiences, seeking feedback, and being willing to show their humanity. This openness does not diminish authority. It enhances it by demonstrating wisdom and humility. The impact of vulnerability extends beyond internal teams and influences how organizations interact with their customers and stakeholders. Companies led by vulnerable leaders tend to be more transparent and socially responsible, recognizing that authenticity resonates deeply in today's interconnected world. Vulnerability in leadership fosters a culture where ethical considerations and genuine communication are prioritized, creating stronger brand loyalty and public trust. It's a recognition that success is not solely measured by profits, but also by the positive impact one has on society. Leaders who embody vulnerability also tend to cultivate innovation through experimentation. They understand that failure is an inevitable part of trying new things and that hiding setbacks only stifles creativity. By openly discussing failures and lessons learned, they encourage a growth mindset throughout the organization. This approach reduces the stigma around mistakes and encourages teams to view challenges as opportunities to improve and innovate. It creates an environment where calculated risks are embraced and resilience becomes a shared value, Furthermore, vulnerability in leadership contributes significantly to personal development. When leaders allow themselves to be vulnerable, they engage in honest self-assessment, which promotes continuous learning and emotional growth. This introspection enables them to develop greater empathy, improve decision-making, and build stronger interpersonal relationships. The courage to be vulnerable also fosters mental well-being by reducing the stress that comes with maintaining a facade of invincibility. Leaders who take care of their own emotional health are better equipped to inspire and support their teams. In essence, vulnerability in leadership redefines what it means to be strong and effective. It shifts the paradigm from authority based on control and certainty to influence grounded in authenticity and openness. This transformation not only enhances individual leaders, but also elevates entire organizations, making them more adaptive, innovative, and resilient in the face of complexity and change. Embracing vulnerability is not a sign of weakness. It is the hallmark of visionary leadership that inspires trust, drives collaboration, and cultivates lasting success. Vulnerability is a profound force that fosters genuine connection in both personal and professional relationships. When individuals allow themselves to be vulnerable, they step into a space of authenticity where true understanding and empathy can flourish. This openness dissolves barriers, inviting others to see beyond superficial facades and engage on a deeper level. In doing so, it creates a foundation for trust that is resilient and meaningful, enabling relationships to withstand challenges and grow stronger over time. At its core, vulnerability invites honest communication. When people share their fears, doubts, and hopes without pretense, it encourages others to respond with empathy rather than judgment. This reciprocal exchange nurtures a sense of belonging and acceptance, which is essential for healthy relationships. Without vulnerability, interactions often remain transactional and superficial, lacking the depth needed for genuine connection. By contrast, vulnerability acts as a bridge that brings individuals closer, fostering intimacy and mutual respect. In leadership, this principle becomes even more significant. Leaders who embrace vulnerability build stronger connections with their teams by demonstrating that they are not distant or unapproachable figures, but real human beings with imperfections and emotions. This transparency inspires team members to open up about their own challenges and ideas, enhancing collaboration and innovation. It creates a safe environment where people feel valued for their authentic selves, rather than just their output or performance. This sense of psychological safety is crucial for team cohesion and productivity. Moreover, vulnerability in relationships challenges the cultural norms that often equate strength with stoicism and emotional control. It takes courage to be vulnerable because it means risking exposure and the possibility of rejection or misunderstanding. However, this risk is outweighed by the reward of deeper connection and emotional fulfillment. When vulnerability is embraced, it dismantles the isolation that many people experience and replaces it with a shared human experience. This shared vulnerability fosters compassion and kindness, creating bonds that sustain relationships through adversity. On a practical level, cultivating vulnerability requires intentional effort and mindfulness. It means being willing to express emotions honestly, to admit when one does not have all the answers, and to ask for support when needed. It also involves active listening and responding with empathy when others share their vulnerabilities. These practices nurture a culture of openness and trust, whether in personal relationships, workplaces, or communities. Vulnerability is not a one-size-fits-all sided act but a dynamic exchange that deepens connection. The transformative power of vulnerability extends beyond individual relationships and influences organizational culture as well. Companies that prioritize authentic communication and emotional openness tend to have more engaged and motivated employees. Such organizations foster loyalty and commitment by valuing people for who they are, not just what they do. This environment encourages creativity and risk-taking because employees feel safe to express innovative ideas without fear of criticism. The ripple effect of vulnerability thus enhances both interpersonal relationships and organizational success. Furthermore, vulnerability enables conflict resolution and healing. When people are willing to acknowledge their own vulnerabilities during disagreements, it shifts the conversation from blame to understanding. It allows all parties to explore underlying emotions and needs rather than just surface-level positions. This deeper dialogue paves the way for genuine reconciliation and stronger bonds. Without vulnerability, conflicts often escalate or remain unresolved, damaging relationships over time. Vulnerability also plays a crucial role in building emotional intelligence. By recognizing and sharing one's own feelings, individuals develop greater self-awareness and empathy for others. This emotional attunement enhances interpersonal dynamics and improves communication effectiveness. In professional settings, emotionally intelligent leaders who model vulnerability are better equipped to manage diverse teams and navigate complex social environments. Their authenticity fosters respect and admiration, making them more influential and inspiring. In intimate relationships, vulnerability is the foundation of true intimacy and trust. Sharing fears, dreams, and insecurities creates a safe emotional space where partners can connect deeply and authentically. It moves beyond superficial interactions to a level where both individuals feel truly seen and understood. This depth of connection nurtures love and commitment, supporting relationships through life's inevitable challenges. In essence, vulnerability is the key that unlocks genuine connection. It transforms interactions from superficial exchanges into meaningful relationships built on trust, empathy, and authenticity. Whether in leadership, personal relationships, or organizational culture, embracing vulnerability fosters a sense of belonging and mutual respect that enriches lives. The courage to be vulnerable is a powerful act of human connection, enabling us to build bonds that are resilient, authentic, and deeply fulfilling. The courage to be vulnerable often stands in stark contrast to the prevailing cultural norms that associate strength with stoicism, emotional control, and invulnerability. Society frequently celebrates the idea of being tough, unemotional, and self-reliant, creating an environment where vulnerability is mistakenly perceived as weakness or failure. This misconception discourages people from showing their true selves and from expressing the full range of their emotions. Yet, it is precisely this courage to be vulnerable, this willingness to face uncertainty, risk rejection, and expose one's imperfections, that is a profound demonstration of strength and resilience. To choose vulnerability is to reject the armor of invulnerability that many wear to protect themselves from pain or judgment. This act of opening oneself up to potential hurt requires immense bravery because it means stepping into a space of uncertainty where outcomes are not guaranteed. It means risking criticism, misunderstanding, or even betrayal. However, it is this very risk that creates an opportunity for genuine connection and personal growth. When people allow themselves to be seen in their rawest form, Complete with doubts, fears, and failures, they invite others to do the same. This mutual openness builds trust and deepens relationships in ways that superficial interactions never can. Moreover, embracing vulnerability disrupts the cycle of isolation that fear of judgment often creates. When people hide their true feelings or struggles, they isolate themselves emotionally, creating a barrier between themselves and others. This isolation breeds loneliness and disconnection, which can exacerbate feelings of anxiety and despair. Conversely, when vulnerability is embraced and normalized, it fosters a culture of empathy and compassion. Sharing personal challenges and uncertainties creates a shared human experience that reminds individuals they are not alone in their struggles. This shared understanding strengthens bonds and nurtures communities where people support and uplift each other. The courage to be vulnerable also enables individuals to grow and evolve. Personal development often requires confronting uncomfortable truths about oneself and facing challenges head-on. It demands a willingness to admit mistakes, learn from failures, and seek help when needed. Vulnerability is the gateway to this process because it breaks down the defenses that prevent self-awareness and honest reflection. By embracing vulnerability, individuals open themselves to feedback and new perspectives that are essential for growth. This openness leads to greater resilience as people learn to navigate adversity with grace and adaptability. In leadership, the power of vulnerability is particularly transformative. Leaders who model vulnerability create environments where employees feel safe to take risks, share ideas, and express concerns without fear of retribution. Such leaders acknowledge their limitations and uncertainties, which humanizes them and builds credibility. This authenticity fosters loyalty and motivates teams to collaborate more effectively. Vulnerable leaders inspire innovation by encouraging experimentation and learning from mistakes rather than punishing failure. The courage to be vulnerable thus drives organizational success by cultivating trust, creativity, and resilience within teams. Furthermore, vulnerability is crucial in breaking down societal stigmas around mental health and emotional well-being. By speaking openly about struggles and vulnerabilities, individuals contribute to a cultural shift that normalizes seeking help and expressing emotions. This openness challenges harmful stereotypes and reduces shame, making it easier for others to access support. The courage to share personal stories and emotions fosters a more compassionate society where people feel empowered to care for their mental and emotional health. On a relational level, the courage to be vulnerable deepens intimacy and connection. True intimacy is not about perfection or always appearing strong. It is about being fully known and accepted despite flaws and imperfections. Vulnerability invites honesty and emotional availability, which are the foundations of healthy, meaningful relationships. When partners, friends, or family members share their authentic selves, including fears and insecurities, they create a space of trust where love and understanding can flourish. This deep emotional connection provides support and comfort during life's inevitable challenges. Practicing vulnerability also cultivates empathy, an essential human quality that bridges divides and fosters understanding. When individuals openly share their struggles, it invites others to empathize with their experience. This empathy promotes kindness and reduces judgment, encouraging more supportive and inclusive interactions. The courage to be vulnerable thus strengthens social bonds and contributes to more compassionate communities. Developing the courage to be vulnerable is a process that requires patience, self-compassion, and practice. It often begins with small steps, sharing a personal thought, admitting a mistake, or asking for help. Over time, these actions build confidence and create a habit of openness. Mindfulness and emotional intelligence practices can support this journey by helping individuals recognize and manage their emotions effectively. Supportive environments, whether in families, workplaces, or communities, also play a vital role in encouraging vulnerability by modeling acceptance and empathy. Ultimately, the courage to be vulnerable is not about exposing oneself recklessly, but about choosing authenticity over fear. It means acknowledging the full spectrum of human experience, joy, pain, success, failure, and embracing it with honesty and openness. This courage transforms lives by fostering deeper connections, promoting personal growth, and creating cultures of empathy and resilience. It challenges the misconception that vulnerability is weakness, and instead reveals it as one of the greatest sources of strength a person can possess. The courage to be vulnerable is a transformative force in leadership. In traditional views, leaders are often expected to be infallible, decisive, and unemotional, projecting an image of unwavering strength and certainty. This perception creates an unrealistic standard that discourages leaders from showing any form of vulnerability, fearing it might undermine their authority or credibility. However, true leadership is far more nuanced and powerful when it embraces vulnerability as a core strength rather than a liability. Vulnerable leaders demonstrate authenticity by openly acknowledging their limitations, uncertainties, and mistakes. This authenticity humanizes them and breaks down the hierarchical barriers that often create distance between leaders and their teams. When leaders share their struggles or admit when they don't have all the answers, they create a culture of transparency that fosters trust. Trust is the cornerstone of effective leadership because it encourages open communication, collaboration, and a shared sense of purpose. People naturally gravitate toward leaders they perceive as genuine and relatable, rather than those who project an unattainable ideal of perfection. Moreover, vulnerability in leadership encourages psychological safety within organizations. Psychological safety refers to an environment where team members feel safe to take risks, voice their opinions, and express concerns without fear of judgment or retaliation. When leaders model vulnerability, they send a powerful message that it's acceptable to be imperfect, to experiment, and to learn from failure. This openness ignites innovation because employees are more willing to share bold ideas and try new approaches when they know mistakes will be met with support rather than punishment. In essence, vulnerability drives creativity and continuous improvement by dismantling the fear that stifles progress. Leaders who embrace vulnerability also foster resilience both in themselves and their teams. Resilience is the ability to bounce back from setbacks and adapt to change. Vulnerable leaders openly confront challenges and setbacks rather than hiding them or pretending everything is fine. By doing so, they model resilience, showing that setbacks are not a sign of failure, but an opportunity to learn and grow. This mindset trickles down to the team, encouraging members to persevere through difficulties with courage and optimism. In turbulent times, such leadership is invaluable because it maintains morale and motivates people to keep pushing forward despite obstacles. Another critical aspect of vulnerability in leadership is the ability to build empathy and emotional intelligence. Empathy is the capacity to understand and share the feelings of others, a quality essential for managing relationships and navigating the complexities of human dynamics. Vulnerable leaders are more in tune with their own emotions and, consequently, better able to connect with the emotions of others. This emotional attunement allows leaders to respond compassionately to their team's needs, fostering loyalty and commitment. When employees feel understood and valued, their engagement and productivity increase, contributing to a healthier organizational culture. The courage to be vulnerable also transforms decision-making processes. Leaders who acknowledge uncertainty and seek input from others create more inclusive and well-informed decisions, instead of relying solely on their own perspective or appearing to have all the answers. Vulnerable leaders encourage diverse viewpoints and constructive feedback. This collaborative approach not only enhances the quality of decisions, but also empowers team members, making them feel invested in the outcomes. Inclusive decision-making nurtures a sense of ownership and accountability, which strengthens the entire organization. In addition, vulnerability in leadership facilitates personal growth and self-awareness. Leaders who are willing to reflect honestly on their performance and seek feedback demonstrate humility, a trait that fuels continuous development. Such leaders recognize that growth is a lifelong process that requires openness to change and a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths about themselves. This attitude sets a powerful example for others to follow, cultivating a culture of learning and adaptability that is crucial in today's fast-paced and ever-evolving world. Leadership vulnerability also has a profound impact on organizational culture. When leaders embrace vulnerability, they set a tone that values honesty, openness, and mutual support. This tone influences norms and behaviors across all levels of the organization, creating an environment where people feel safe to express their authentic selves. A culture that embraces vulnerability is less prone to toxic competition, fear-driven politics, and burnout. Instead, it thrives on collaboration, trust, and collective resilience, making the organization more agile and sustainable over the long term. Furthermore, the courage to be vulnerable allows leaders to inspire and motivate on a deeper level. Authentic stories of struggle and perseverance resonate powerfully because they reflect shared human experiences. When leaders share their personal journeys, including their vulnerabilities and setbacks, they inspire others to face their own challenges with courage. This authentic connection fosters a sense of purpose and meaning that transcends transactional leadership, motivating people to contribute their best selves not just for rewards, but because they believe in a shared vision. The transformative power of vulnerability in leadership is not without challenges. It requires a delicate balance. Leaders must be open and authentic without oversharing or appearing indecisive. It takes emotional maturity and situational awareness to discern when and how to show vulnerability effectively. However, when practiced thoughtfully, the courage to be vulnerable enhances leadership impact, building stronger, more innovative, and compassionate organizations that are equipped to thrive in complexity and change. In summary, vulnerability redefines leadership from a role of authority and control to one of authenticity, empathy, and resilience. It creates environments where trust flourishes, innovation thrives, and people are empowered to grow and contribute meaningfully. The courage to be vulnerable is, therefore, not a weakness to be concealed, but a powerful strength that shapes the future of leadership and organizational success.